Hi, I'm Mayce.
And I'm Missy.
We're best friends
and business partners. And each week, we're going to bring you a quote that inspires us, and we're going to talk about it.
Join us as we break down our favorite impactful messages for leadership and share how you can apply them to lead with confidence and purpose.
Get ready for a fun and authentic journey into leadership, life, and everything in between. Hey, bestie.
Hey, bestie.
How are you?
I am great. And I am also so ready for this conversation. Like, this is going to be such a good one.
Same. I mean, this week, it's just us, no guests, no interviews, just pure, unfiltered leadership talk and talk with besties.
Yeah. And that's fun, right? We don't always need a guest. Our guests have been great, but this is going to be equally as great. So Today's quote is so good. It's one of those that you either hear or you read and you're like, oh my gosh, I felt that in my core.
Yes. And it's so good that we share it before many, many, many of our trainings, keynotes, etc. Yes?
Yeah. I mean, that's just really how we kick off any of our trainings is with this quote. So just for our listeners, if you've ever been in one of our training sessions with us before and you're listening, you could probably say it along right with us.
All right. That's right. So here's the quote. It takes a certain amount of ego to grow. Too little and you don't think you can. Too much and you don't think you need to. And that was penned, I guess you would say, by Eric Hoffer.
Oh, it is so good.
That's right. Good enough, as we said, that we use it every time we train.
Yeah. And I think what it really does, it allows everyone who hears it, right? Especially if you're in the room with us and you're training with us and you're not really sure why you were chosen for the training and your leader or your boss just said you need to show up, right? It allows everyone to just do that checkup from the neck up. So listeners, you're listening. This is your opportunity to do that checkup from the neck up.
It is. It surely is. So as we're having our podcast today and you're listening, just give yourself that awareness check to see if this applies to you in any way.
Yeah, because I think, Miss, like, honestly, I think every leader at some point in their career or in their life struggle with this, right? It's like, how do I find the balance between confidence? Because we could replace ego with confidence. I think ego
for sure
has like a negative connotation to it. So how do I replace that confidence that I have with humility, like being that humble person?
Right. And what I would say is if you don't have enough ego or confidence, as you said, then that belief in yourself or that lack of belief in yourself causes you to not even try, and it holds you back.
Right.
But if you have too much ego, you stop growing because you assume you've already arrived.
Yeah. And I think that that's where it gets tricky, right? Like you don't always know when you're like tipping. If we think of things as a scale, like you don't always know when you're tipping too far in one direction or the other.
Right. It's like one day you're being humble and then the next day you're like, wait, am I shrinking back or am I steamrolling?
Right. And honestly, we don't want to do either of those, right?
Right.
Like we certainly don't want to shrink back, but we absolutely, as leaders, we do not want to steamroll over our people. So let's break it down a little bit. Let's talk about, we'll start with the too little of ego or too little confidence. How do you think that shows up or could show up in leadership?
Well, I think it shows up when people undervalue themselves, right? Like they hesitate to speak up in a meeting and share an idea, or they don't apply for that promotion, or they second guess their instincts, even though they've done the work, they've got the experience. They're ready, but they hold back.
Yeah, I think we see this, unfortunately, a lot with women in leadership. I think just the way that the
Yes.
culture
Yes. And,
is.
early on in my career when I was teaching school, it was primarily women I worked with,
Right.
and I saw it so much, like women who weren't confident to get out of the box or try new things, or they had an innovative idea and they were hesitant to share it, especially if it like wasn't in the teacher's manual.
So, I mean, let's think about that for a minute. Let's talk about it, right? Like a lot of that, what you just talked
Mm-hmm.
about, like the not confident, the not innovative, like it wasn't part of the teacher's manual. I think that comes from how we're conditioned. Like, and again, in this instance, right, in this moment, I'm talking about women in particular. Like, we are taught be polite, be agreeable, don't say too much, don't be too much, don't take up too much space, don't interrupt, don't challenge the status quo, like
Yes.
all of those things. And I think that then it's no wonder why so many women have a hard time speaking up and they do stay quiet even when they have something so valuable to contribute. Because back in the day, that's what society told us to do: stay quiet, stay down, stay back, right? And we're here to say, no more.
Step out of the shadows.
Yes,
Macy,
absolutely.
I remember we were in a training session not too long ago, you and I, and someone said that women are more likely to stay silent in meetings. Right. We just were talking about that. But they said it was not because they don't know the answer, but because they're worried about how it will come across. I have probably been fallen guilty to that before.
Mm.
Not that I wouldn't come back and say it, but I would want to make sure my words were formed correctly, right? Like being that Southern girl that I've been, I don't want it to come across in any certain way.
Yeah. And I think for me, I have always been to the point where like I just say it. And oftentimes I say the thing that people wish they could say,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't have that confidence. And I like to say confidence instead of ego because I really do think like ego does have such a negative
It
connotation.
does. But let me say this in the quote, when you think about having too much ego to grow, and I think we'll go there in our discussion, it is ego.
Yeah.
Ego that keeps people from saying there might be something I can gain from this,
I know,
right?
but sometimes I agree, but I will challenge a little bit. I think when someone has so much confidence, they also say, I don't need to learn this. I don't need to show up for this. I don't need to read the book. I don't need to watch the show. I
But
don't need
that's
to.
ego, Macy. That's
Yeah.
ego. That's ego talking.
Yeah. Well, I guess maybe we need to do an episode on what's the difference between ego and confidence. I think for men too, because obviously not all of our listeners are women. I think men have this problem, the too little. We're talking about the too little of the ego or
Right.
confidence. They have it more so, I think,
Okay.
when they're new in their roles, right? It's a new environment from them
Yes.
where they don't know, like, is this a safe environment? Can I speak up? Am I going to be judged? Am I going to get my hand slapped for speaking up? So I think that it does happen a lot for women, but I don't want to disregard that for men it happens too. But typically it's when you're newer in a role or an environment and you're not really sure kind of what the expectation is, maybe.
Yeah. And I would say, Macy, I've always been very confident of my ideas and my vision and what I wanted to do and share and, wanted to step outside the box. But you're exactly right when you say that, because when I'm new in an environment, I like to get a feel for how it
Sure.
all works, right? There it is. I want to not step on anyone's toes. But man, once I've established that, I really do love sharing those ideas and questioning what's going on and hoping to have conversation to make things better.
And what I would say about that, Miss, too, I think that in those scenarios, whether it's a man or a woman, like that is irregardless. But I do think it's up to the leader, whoever the leader is in
Yes.
these
Yes.
situations, to create the environment where everyone feels safe so that those that have too little of confidence or too little of ego in this instance, that they do feel safe enough to stand up. Because when people don't share their ideas, we never know what they're missing. We never know as a group what's missing.
That's exactly right. And it goes back to what we say. It's always the leader's responsibility too. Dot.
Yeah.
And so for everyone, here's the truth, right? Here's the truth. Confidence is not given. It's claimed. So no one is going to come like tap you on the shoulder and say, okay, now it's your time to shine. I mean, they just aren't.
No, I think you're right that you have to raise your hand before you're ready. But I do have a question for you. Do you feel like, because we know that there's different types of leaders, right? We know that there's natural born leaders. We know that there's people who are learned leaders. Let's just say that. And then there's people who will never be leaders, right? There's three categories. Do you think that there are people that are just born with it, right? They are just born with confidence. They are naturally confident. And, or if that is the case, if you say, yes, Macy, I think people are not, do you think people can learn, and how do they learn confidence? Hey, bestie. We just got some amazing feedback from a client we recently worked with. Their team's morale and engagement skyrocketed after our training.
I love hearing that. Companies are seeing higher retention, lower turnover, and even increased revenue and productivity because leaders are investing in their teams.
And communication and team efficiency are improving, which we know leads to better customer service and huge cost savings. If you want these results, check out our website, Mpactful Messages, to learn how we can help you.
And for more leadership tips and strategies, sign up for our newsletter, mmleadershipnews.com. That's a great question. And I would say, yes, I do believe there are people who are born with the propensity. Is that the right word? Propensity?
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe not. Our listeners will let us know, right? If that's not the right word. But yes, I do think people are born to be more inclined to be confident, those natural leaders. I think I'm one of them. I think you're one of them. Although I want to make sure I do it in the right way, I've always been one to have the confidence in the things I knew I could do, contribute, lead, etc. But absolutely it can be learned. You've just got to do the thing. You've got to practice it. You've got to grow yourself to a point where you're not so concerned about what others think of you. You're more concerned in what you contribute will help the people around you. Does that make sense at all?
It does. And it's like I was saying before, it's that balance, right? Like you could be uberly confident, but there has got to be humility in there somewhere as well. You can't be this confident person who doesn't have humility at all.
True. That's so true.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people don't even realize, like you don't even realize you're holding yourself back. And it just becomes part of your rhythm. Like, just let me stay in my lane. Let me stay in my lane until you have that aha of, you know what, I do have something to contribute and I'm going to bring it forward.
Yeah. And I think sometimes as years go by, like you look back and you realize that there was so much inside of you that never made it out. And we don't want that, right?
No.
Like that's not good. I would say that's not good leadership, especially if you're in a leadership role, but just as a person, you don't want to regret that you never spoke up or said the things that you want to say.
I agree. And I really think, Macy, that's why self-awareness is so key. You've got to be able to recognize when you're playing small or if you're pulling back, especially if it's because you don't want to step on anyone's toes. So if you're listening and thinking, oh no, that's me, this is your moment. This is your sign.
Yes, let this be the last day that you underestimate yourself, right? Okay, so let's flip the script. What happens when ego is too big, or what some might say, because we're using the words interchangeably, although it may be inappropriately, what some might say have too much confidence?
So let me ask you, let me turn it around with a question. Have you ever worked with someone who thought they were the smartest person in every room?
I mean, are you kidding? Of course. Like I don't know that I've necessarily worked with with that person, but I've known people that they're like, I've got this. I don't need you. I don't need anyone. I don't need anybody's input. Like that was what the cool kids are saying now. That was the aura
Oh, the
that they put, the
aura. Is
aura.
that the
That's
cool
the
thing to
aura that they
say?
were putting out. Yeah.
I know.
AKA energy.
And you try to give them feedback, and they're like, "Nah, I'm good."
Yeah. Meanwhile, everybody else is over in the corner saying, respectfully, you're not good.
Yeah, and I will tell you, I'm thinking of one particular person in my life, Macy, who
Do I know this
always,
person?
no, you've never met this
Oh,
person,
okay.
but they always know everything about everything.
Oh, that would drive me
It
insane bananas.
it's crazy, and the thing about it is, everyone around them picks up on this after a short moment, and all of a sudden they're an expert in gardening, and the next thing they're an expert in um, becoming a mortician. What that's like I'm not exaggerating, those are two very exact
Oh, I
examples.
hope that person's not listening because they're going to know that you're
I
talking
know.
about them.
Well, no, they probably wouldn't, right?
Right. Oh,
Because
true.
what happens is, when you are in that mindset, you stop listening. You stop
Yeah.
listening to yourself. You stop listening to others. And you and I know what happens then, right? You
Yeah.
stop growing.
That's right. And one of the things that we believe so deeply in, especially with leadership, right? There is no arrival point. There's no, I've made it.
That's
Here I
right.
am. I'm done. Because honestly, the moment you stop thinking or you start thinking that you've arrived, you're already behind.
Yes.
Everything is evolving. Things are moving so fast. Your people, your industry, hopefully you. So once you've gotten to the point, you're like, I'm here, I made it.
Mm-hmm.
If you really believe that, like you're DOA, like
Yeah.
you're
And
dead on arrival.
yeah, that is the real danger of that unchecked ego,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah, for
this is
certain.
why we love leaders who stay teachable, the
Yeah.
ones who say, hey, I've been doing this for 20 years, but I'm still learning every day. I mean, Macy, how many times have we led a training, multiple generations in the room, and the really experienced people come up to us and say, man, you really can teach an old dog
Yeah.
new tricks,
And
right?
that's
Maybe
the
they
thing.
start out like with their hands, they're like sitting back, they're, a little bit disconnected.
Yeah.
But by the end, they come around and they're like,
Yeah, these girls taught me a thing or two. And that's the
right.
thing about being teachable, right? When you're teachable, it doesn't mean that you don't know anything. It doesn't mean like we're
Right.
here to teach you everything about things that you don't know about. But what it is, it means that you're open to knowing more. And it's that word open that is so important. How open are you to learning, to growing, to leading, dot, dot, dot.
We love that word. And so I'm just going to say, I know some of our listeners take notes because
Yeah.
they've written in and told us, right? They've texted, they put it on post. And so if you are taking notes, you need to write down the word open. It is a magic word that Macy and I like to use a lot in our conversations because no one wants to be closed, but it is an especially important word when you're having self-talk. Are you open?
That's so
right?
good because normally we do say like, ask the person, like, are you open to
Right.
having a conversation? And we always joke that that works with everybody but our husbands because
That's
they know
right.
when we say, are you open? No, we
They
are
know
not.
we're up to
But
something.
I love your perspective that you just said now. Like maybe if you're taking notes, write it down. Are you, circle the YOU because you're talking to yourself. Are you open? That's really good.
Good. Okay, so some real talk here, Mace.
Okay.
Let's talk about it.
All right.
Have you ever had a too much ego moment?
Oh, I think we all have. I mean, I think if someone says I've never had a too much
For
ego
sure.
moment, they're lying. I mean, sometimes we're in meetings and I'm like, well, that could have been an email and maybe it could have been, right? Or maybe I needed to be open to hearing. But I remember not being, not that long ago, being in a training. And once I heard about the training, I was like, I do not need this. I have been doing what I'm doing forever. Why was I invited to this? Right? Like, I don't need to be here.
Right.
And then one of the things that you and I always try to encourage people is, can you take away one gold nugget?
Yes.
And that really has helped the ego part in me, saying, okay, if I go into this thing, this reading this book, this meeting, this training, with the idea of I'm going to only take away one nugget, or I'm going to take away at least one nugget, like find the gold, go on this treasure hunt. I think that has really helped me from having more of those too much ego moments, because there's always something, let's be honest.
Oh, for sure
There's
is.
always something that we can learn. What about you? Can you think of, can you think of the last time? Because again, if people are listening and they're like, I never have too much ego moments, they're lying. So,
well, then they've got too much ego to see it, right?
Good point.
That's for sure. Yes, I have had some of those moments where I have too much ego for something. But as I've really kind of studied that, right, as we grow and we have these realizations, as I've studied that, it's sometimes more of what I don't want to do or learn, and that makes me think I've got that.
Can you give an example?
Well,
I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but
so I'm this is totally not like sitting in a training or something, but whenever we had a retreat for our sales team a couple of years ago, and we went to the ropes course, right?
Okay. Yep.
And I was like, there's nothing here for me. Like, I'm not going to do this. Like, because I didn't want to, right? And so we get to that final activity of the day, and everybody's like harnessing up to climb the telephone pole and walk across the tightrope. And I thought, I don't need this. I don't need to do this. There's nothing there for me. And I know you had similar thoughts, doing something very similar, but you made yourself do it. And that may have been part of my motivation to do it and try it and say, what can I get out of this?
Yeah.
But I went into it stubborn. Like, I went into it stubborn.
Oh, because I was going to say, well, okay, so maybe you went into it stubborn, but there was a flip that kind of switched that made you curious about it. Because I think once you stop being curious, then you stop growing.
Yes.
Like, I think you might have then had this flip of the script moment to say, what can I learn from this about
How
myself?
can I grow? And so, because you were there, I did it. I cried. It took me longer than anyone to do it. It's nothing I want to do again. Not my cup of tea. I don't know that I had this great aha of growth or learning from it, but I do know it pushed me outside of my comfort zone. And I do know that that's where our success lies.
Right.
And I just have to believe that by doing that, I experience some growth, even if it's in mindset.
Well, what I would say, so I had a similar experience years ago with a ropes course, right? Like, I had nightmares. I really believe I had post-traumatic stress from the ropes course, but I had a lot of ahas from my experience, a lot more than you did. And we weren't friends at the time, so you wouldn't have been there with me.
And yours was a whole weekend that went around the
and
course. Mine was a couple of hours.
And it was very high in the air. Like, there was just a lot of stress about it. But I think for you, just the fact that you can say that, for you to say, I don't really know what I may have gotten from it, right there, I think that's where you got something, because we're talking about it, you're reflecting on it. So I think even for anyone listening, like, when you have those moments and you're like, I don't really know in the moment what I got from it, you might not know what you got from something in the moment. It may take years to be able. So,
all right. So let me ask you this.
Okay.
How do we stay in balance, right? Like, how do we keep the ego in check without shrinking back?
Yeah. And, normally I don't love the word balance, because I think balance is BS.
I know. Right.
But I do think in this instance, we do need balance. So I think there's 2 C's that maybe come into it. One of them I just talked about.
I love an alliteration.
I know. One of them I just talked about, the curiosity part, but the second part is the confidence, right? So this is what I mean by confidence. Confidence in this instance is about knowing your worth and owning your voice and knowing what value you bring to the table. That's why you talked about earlier when someone has too little of an ego, you said that's usually when they don't know your value. So
that's right.
I think when you know your worth, you know your value, you bring your value and you own your voice.
You're aware of your gifts, talents. Yes.
So it's that confidence of knowing your worth, but then you're adding curiosity to it about that staying open to learning, open to feedback, open to being wrong sometimes. That is a great balance of too much, too little, or right where you need to be. So I would say if you're having a moment and you're like, is this too much ego? Is this too little ego? Ask yourself, am I displaying the 2 C's, confidence and curiosity?
Love that. And it's not about perfection, right? Like I definitely didn't cross that tightrope with perfection. It was a hoot, but it is about progress. It's about moving forward. I mean, leadership isn't about having it all together. It's about being willing. Willing is a word, Macy. Being willing to grow through what you go through. Let me say that again. Let me say that again.
Say that again for the people in the back.
I know. I kind of stumbled on it, but it's kind of an aha for me, right? It's like being willing to grow through what you go through.
Oh, I think that, like, take notes, people. Like, if you are writing something down, grow through what you go through.
Yes.
Grow through what you go through. I think that's with anything, not just leadership, like any life experience. Grow through it. Like,
you don't want to be the same on the other side of any experience.
No. And here's what I would say too about the curiosity and confidence thing. I think confidence sometimes gets us in the room, right? We could get in rooms because we're confident. We belong there. But curiosity keeps you growing once you're in that room.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So that was just an aha that I just had. So I want to give our listeners a challenge for the week.
Of course.
I want to tell them to do a little ego check. Where are you on this scale, right? We want to be balanced. Again, I always think balance is BS. I like harmony better, but I do think in this instance, balance is best. So are you holding back because you don't think you're ready, or because you don't think you're good enough, or, you hold value? Or are you missing opportunities to grow because you think you already know it all? And I find
those are so great.
I find that people usually are going to be on one of those sides. They hold themselves back because they're scared, all of the what ifs that we've talked about in previous episodes.
Right.
Or they're not willing even to know what opportunities they're missing because they're so close-minded that they have too much ego. And I think once you figure out where you are, too much or too little, then you need to figure out what is one step. Just one. What's one step that you can take to rebalance the scale?
I love that. And it could be something as simple as speaking up in a meeting.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe it's reading a book that challenges you. Maybe it's asking someone that you trust for some honest feedback. Whatever it is, do something.
Yes.
Because Macy, we've said it a lot. Growth doesn't happen on accident.
That's right.
It takes intention.
And it also takes action, right? I mean, intention is great, but action is better, because leadership isn't just about knowing things. It's about doing things. It's about doing the hard, uncomfortable, brave, outside of your comfort zone things.
Yeah. So I would say if you're listening and you only take one thing from this week's episode, let it be this. Leadership growth requires a delicate balance. That word Macy doesn't love, but it does. It's a delicate balance of confidence and curiosity. Confidence to believe in your voice, to take action, and curiosity to stay open and learn and evolve.
Yeah, it's that sweet spot, right? It's between knowing your worth and knowing there's always more to learn. That's the balance that keeps leaders effective and authentic.
What a great conversation we've had this week, right? Short and sweet, but with a little kick and some really authentic stories.
Yeah, just like us, short and sweet with a little kick, right?
And of course, we cannot end a podcast episode without asking you, our listeners, do you have a favorite leadership quote? Share it with us. We might spotlight it in a future episode. We might put it on a post and share it with the world.
Yes, and we'll be back next week with another quote and more leadership insights. And you know what we're going to do?
We're going to talk about it. Bye, bestie.
Bye, bestie.
We want to thank you for listening. If you're enjoying this podcast, please show us some love by clicking the 3 dots to download the podcast. Leave us a 5-star rating on your podcast app and talk about it with other leaders to help them find the show from any of the major podcast apps. We'd love for you to follow us on social media too. Mpactful with an M _messages on Instagram and Mpactful Messages on LinkedIn.